My uncle's reflections. Engraved on memory's varied page, what changing scenes we see, the hopes of youth, the cares of age, bright joy and misery. When we look back on the vista of years that have fled, and sunk away beneath the bourne of time, contrasting the feelings of our juvenile days with the disappointed hopes of maturer years, we feel a contemplative solemnity diffusing its gloom over the mind, and darkening the pages of memory with the recollection of past sorrows. In such a mood, I mused a few evenings since, sitting alone before the brilliant blaze of a winter's fire. The moon shone clear in the heavens, and the wind whistled mournfully around my dwelling, in sounds, congenial to my pensive reflections. My thoughts wandered 40 years back, and memory whispered, "Then was thy young mind dazzled with hope's fairy glitterings, and absorbed in visions of prospective futurity, then thy unexperienced eye viewed the tinselled picturing of anticipated joys, and admired the fantastic bubbles of worldly pleasure, saw the golden banners of fame emitting an effulgence of splendor and unfolding to thy mistaken view a halo of supernal glory, beheld the wreaths of the conqueror with his laureled brow triumphant, listened to the reiterated plaudits bestowed on the champions of freedom, and vainly aspired to them all. Then too gushed forth the affections of thy soul, the burning desires of ripened feelings. Friendships were formed, and the bewitching society of the gentler sex courted. For a time, all smiled in confidence and truth, but the meteor was transient. A dark cloud soon came to scathe the sunshine of those visionary moments, and throw the pang of suspicion around the innocence of awakened perceptions. The varied hues of expected happiness were soiled by the blots of deceit, and the unsuspecting confidence of nature tarnished by the frenzied tortures of betrayed love. None, save those who have deeply felt all the inward intensity, the racking tortures of baffled love, can form an adequate conception of the extent and violence of the emotion. When the young heart is molded in the school of sensibility, the feelings softened by a disposition of tenderness, and the sincerity of nature unsullied by enlarged communion with the world, the soul unconsciously imparts to the mind of man a desire of bestowing on someone sympathetic spirit, the first and fondest ebullitions of affection, and of eliciting in requital an equal share of ardor, an equivalent degree of truth. In search of this object, too often does the imagination lead us over fields of flowers, as well as deserts of sand, and unfold to our thoughts seductive rivers of pleasure, but veil from our eyes their termination in boisterous seas of trouble. Too often overwhelming desire usurps the reins of reason, and unloosens a horde of illegitimate wishes, which, if not restrained, inevitably precipitate us into an abyss of misery. Yet when these difficulties are apparently surmounted, and we place our affections upon their long-sought idol, casting contemptuous off all grosser feelings, and cling even in the slumbers of night with doting frenzy on the luxurious but fancied purity of a spotless being, in such moments, and with such thoughts, to be roused from a trance so delicious, to be startled from a reverie so infatuating, by one sudden and irrevocable blast of deceit, is misery even unto delirium. 'Tis as the sudden transformation of midday and sunshine, to midnight and darkness, or the instantaneous revolution from the pinnacle of glory, to the degradation of abject infamy. 40 years since, awakened memory echoed, with the chilly voice of the wintry storm. She whom thy imagination had enveloped in a garb of vestal chastity, she whom thou hadst adored as something too lovely, too ineffably pure to be mingled with the heartless multitude of worldly beings, and had fondly looked upon as the exquisite mould containing the heart of an angel, as unpolluted by the faintest blemish of darkness as the purified flake of snow trembling between heaven and earth, she on whom thou hadst lavished the melting soul of thy affections, she who had in concert with thyself sworn by the chaste beams of Luna never to be another's, yes, even she, thy first devotion, grossly, blackly, deceived thee. Even at this remote moment, an icy tremor thrills through my breast, as memory recalls that sudden extinguishment of unbounded confidence, that withering sensation of despair. Never until then had the most distant doubt penetrated my bosom, or the slightest suspicion presented itself in opposition to my belief of that fair one's sacred truth. Therefore the painful shock fell upon my defenseless head, with all the virulence of mighty and unexpected thunder, prostrating all in its course, and leaving behind a track of immeasurable grief. Thus was the first effectual blow aimed at the long protracted visions of worldly happiness, and it has been followed by others, of magnitude in such continual succession, that now, whilst viewing the dark side of the picture, I could exclaim, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. But let me change the scene, and again scrutinize the still glowing occurrences of 40 years, as delineated upon the tablet pages of the mind. I now behold many blissful hours. Many moments illumined with the sunshine of exquisite feeling, the untrammeled gushes of ecstatic enthusiasm, when the spontaneous bursts of nature would overcome the falsehood of artifice, and in shaken friendship and affection be evinced by some glorious and disinterested action. Nor can I recollect without admiration and applause, the proud, the gallant conduct of my country's heroes in the revolutionary struggle and the subsequent war, when the dastard spirit of tyranny shrunk pale and ignominious before the noble-souled sons of freedom, and faded from the shores of emancipated America, trembling and dismayed. Neither can I view the starry flag of union unfurled with bold in unity to the winds of heaven, without feeling exultation and pleasure. Nor can I now behold my adored country peering her bright crest amid the nations of the earth, an example for patriotism and a terror to tyranny, without exclaiming, in the language of the poet, "Breathes there a man with soul so dead, who never to himself hath said, This is my own, my native land." Without feeling rapture fill every vein, without believing, though thought may trace many unhappy hours on the records of existence, there still must shine forth some radiant spots fraught with almost consummate felicity. Frederick, 1826.